Seamus, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to hear more about you and your business. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I always like to look backwards and kind of understand your story in a bit more detail and how you kind of found your way into this ecosystem and into the role that you now have as a business owner. So how did you get started with Salesforce?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story, very happenstance. Initially, I ended up in a Salesforce role through my pursuit of trying to become an investment banker of all things. Um, the intent was, cold call a whole bunch of investment banks at 17 and say, hey, give me a job, any job, I'll take anything. And, you know, time after time, rejection, rejection. But uh, luckily, one finally gave me a chance and said, hey, have you ever heard of Salesforce before? I'd never heard of Salesforce in my life, but they said there's this cool thing called Trailhead. Spend the next 6 months learning what you need to learn in order to help us out. And 6 months later, I joined, and the rest is sort of history there.
So why do you think they gave you a chance? Because we see a lot of people are looking for their first chance in the Salesforce ecosystem right now. What was it about you that you think kind of made them give you an opportunity?
I think that a lot of it had to do with perseverance. I was pretty upfront with the interviewer at that point, saying, "Hey, I called 25 banks. I'm not going to let this stop me." Um, a lot of the interpersonal skills that you develop through that process, being okay with rejection, moving forward, not letting it kind of stop you down, um, is an element that any smart, talented, educated hiring manager is going to pick up on and say, this is somebody that we want to be a part of our team. So I think that had an element to do with it. I think it was also just the right place at the right time. They had a need. They knew they needed to solve it. I brought myself to them. It wasn't like they were looking, but it was finding that perfect sort of situation to join.
Sure. So at the point you I guess presented yourself to them, you had no idea what Salesforce was. You weren't targeting a Salesforce role. It just so happened that they came to you and said we're looking to do this piece of work. Can you pick it up?
Yeah, so in the financial world, it's like any port in a storm, right? Anything that I could get experience um, to bolster my resume, become a more attractive applicant when I was in university, anything to get me over that line. And so um, I was under 18. I couldn't touch the financials of the business for regulatory reasons, um, but they were kind enough to give me that opportunity. I lived in the Bay Area, so I knew about the Salesforce Tower. It was being built at that time, but that was about the extent of my knowledge.
Sure. So when you were like 17, right, at that point. So I think at that time you threw yourself into Trailhead, like you said, and I think you were one of the first or the youngest people to hit Ranger status. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's what they told me when I presented at Dreamforce later that year. So it sort of the boulder started rolling down that hill, gaining momentum because I was getting into Salesforce. I enjoyed it. I found I was good at it. It was something that I could gain skill in. So I reached out to Salesforce corporate and said, hey, I hear there's this really cool thing called Dreamforce. Any chance that there's scholarships for it? I'm not going to be able to afford a $2,000 ticket. They said, wow, we've never had anybody really reach out about this before. Why don't you come down to the tower? We'd love to interview you, learn your story. And eventually, that led to me speaking at Dreamforce that year, and sort of serving as a mini ambassador to kind of get as many college students as involved as possible. Because as there's a huge gap in the marketplace right now. People, you know, we need more talent. We need more skilled individuals to pick it up, and college students hopefully will hear the call and start working on it.
Sure. So again, going back to your age then, so did you then start that job but continue studying? Was it like a part-time role?
Yeah, so I worked. So I graduated secondary school, high school at 17, and then I went to college out in Massachusetts at Boston College, and I continued to work with that firm throughout pretty much the entire time. So between them and eventually having other clients, I worked approximately 30 to 40 hours a week in addition to my studies in the Salesforce ecosystem.
Sure. So at what point did you think to yourself, I can make a business out of this?
Well, I think that honestly, what prompted we always knew that there would be a business element to it, right? There's so much demand. The decision was just, do I go at it alone or do I start my own firm? And initially, to be honest with you, I was going to go and work for a big four consultancy, gain great experience, work with an established firm. And then COVID-19 hit and they delayed my start date out, by almost a year. And so it gave me the opportunity to really sit back and consider, okay, I've enjoyed being an independent consultant. Can I make a go out of it? And I had nothing better to do. So it was, why not keep booking up, expanding? I filled myself up. I hired another person. I filled them up. And at that point, it was like, okay, this is starting to become a real business. I come to a crossroads. Do I want to do this full time? And ultimately, just seeing all of the experience that I was getting, all of the interactions that I was able to have with C-suite level executives that I never would have been able to have at the other firm really pushed me over the edge to make that jump.
Sure. So can you remember, so you obviously had your initial client, but can you remember what your pitch was to then start building out the client base and getting client 2 and 3 and so on?
Well, I can tell you that it boils down to a couple of elements. One is that, quite frankly, cost, right? So as a student, I was pretty much able to undercut everybody else in the marketplace if people were willing to give me the shot. So as long as someone is intelligent and has taken the time, has case studies, has people backing them up saying that they do good work, it's okay to take, that person at their word that they're doing good quality at a low rate. And that was one of the things that I found, was that ultimately I was able to undercut everybody else that was going for the same roles. The other element is that I had a little bit of that financial services experience at that point, right? So I was able to say, hey, I've worked in investment banking, I've worked in a similar org, and I've seen the struggles, right? This isn't someone who just has the Salesforce knowledge. I have the industry experience to back that up, and I'm able to apply that to help solve your problems more expeditiously, less expensively, and ultimately just understand even the lingo that you're speaking, rather than having to just have the technical knowledge.
Sure. Did you ever get pushback? Like, did anyone ever say you're at university still, or with you're coming into these finance companies with not a huge amount of experience? So did you get companies saying, well, we're safer going with the bigger partners?
By the time that I was, if they were sitting down to listen to me, if I had actually gotten in front of a live person, we'd sort of overcome that obstacle already. So we certainly, would reach out to people all the time and not hear back, and that would be, that's par for course. But once we actually sat down and explained, I'm lucky. I've been given a lot of opportunities to sort of develop a solid resume. I graduated high school at 17. I graduated from college 3 years later with 2 degrees. I've got luckily sort of the chops to back it up on paper, which makes people take me seriously until I can get in the door and really, sell them on my abilities and that of my team. So to date, we haven't really experienced, the hard, rejection in the room of you're too young, you're not experienced enough, et cetera, because we're lucky we have generated an awful lot of experience in our particular niche over a relatively short amount of time of 3 to 4 years.
And how important has that remaining niche been to you, do you think? Like, rather than just going, right now we can do everything, having that niche, is that still kind of key to your success?
I think that over time we've pivoted slightly in that our brand is more so that we're looking to partner with people for the long term. That's become sort of our core identity, and that we'll take project work, but that's really not, our bread and butter. We want to be there as a true partner with someone for years to come. And so we've sort of navigated, we're still very much, don't get me wrong, financial services centered, but we've also been able to expand, and our brand, so to speak, our niche has simply been that we're longing to partner for the long term rather than have a particular industry knowledge. But certainly it gives us a distinguisher when we're talking with, private wealth management firms or merchant banks or, loan issuers, mortgage brokers that, hey, we've been here before, we've seen it. That always gives, sort of an edge going in the door.
Okay. And then you mentioned obviously the team you've been able to build. So how did you approach that from being an individual, consultant, like you said, to then scaling a team? What was your approach to getting the first people through the door and making sure they were the right people?
This is, I think, probably the most challenging element of scaling any business. Not like that I've got that much experience in doing that, but it certainly is. Picking the right talent was one of those foremost challenges. And I leaned heavily on the quote unquote Ohana, right? Saying, hey, if you could pick anybody, who would it be? And I spoke with a number of people who were kind of already happy in their existing roles and said, all right, you're not going to come over, but give me somebody who would, and who's really happy and excited to kind of start something new. Was able to get some good talent from there. And on the flip side of that, we're also looking at sort of alternative sources of talent, in that we're not just focused on building a consulting team. We're trying to build an organization around it as well. So a solid sales team, so that we can go out there and expand and generate that business, finding the high quality clients that we want. A team of content specialists who are going out there and generating, engaging content about Salesforce, about the case studies that we've done. I think that by bringing all those skill sets together, you're able to find people who are experts in their own craft, without needing to necessarily find that one superstar who can do it all.
Okay. And you've continued to, because of your success through university or college, as you guys over there call it, you were a student and managing to deliver Salesforce projects on the side. I believe you've still got some affiliation with bringing students into the Salesforce ecosystem. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have a unique perspective, obviously, because of my own personal experience, that students are often discounted earlier than they should be. It's not that 100% of students are going to be the perfect fit for every role. That's certainly not our argument, but there are unique individuals who are driven, who went to university because that's what they were told to do, but aren't simply content sitting in the classes in a passive learning environment. So right now, right, there's such a drought, if you will, of talent, affordable talent at least, across the global ecosystem, that our perspective is, if we can start exposing students at a young age, freshman, sophomore, year one, year two, to the ecosystem and giving them projects, they're not world ending, but having them in the room, learning by osmosis, learning by action in some cases, then by the time they graduate, if they choose to come back and work with us, they'll have, I don't know, a year or 2 years of practical experience under their belts, propelling them forward, and making them that much more effective out of the gate, rather than just someone who's fresh out of school, who may have the exact same acumen or natural gifts, but they just haven't been able to hone those through practical experience to that point. There's also, without going into detail, a lot of things that a business can use help with. Our social media team, for example, is entirely made up of students, and new college grads. So they're heading that train off by storm and expanding our base, because they know it and they've studied it, and they're able to put that book knowledge to use, in both a cost-effective and mutually beneficial way.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so if you offer a piece of work to a student at the moment, what kind of work can they get involved in from a Salesforce perspective? Fresh out of the gate, they I guess you're putting them through Trailhead and some sort of learning curve initially, but how quickly can they be effective on a project, and what kind of work can they be doing?
So we kind of have a generalized rule of thumb that students, before they touch anything active, need to have 2 to 3 super badges and the admin cert. That's just sort of a baseline of knowledge. With that being said, there's plenty of things that students can get involved with I've mentioned the content team. We're big on, generating content about why Salesforce is a great career, how they can get involved with it. So joining the content team is an area where we've recruited heavily into, and that will get exposed to what Salesforce is. If you're having to write an article about something, you're having to go deep into it and really understand it in order to craft that message. So they're learning there, combined with sort of an active side on Trailhead. And even, everybody needs to be able to, every firm is going to need to clean Excel sheets from time to time, consolidate data, do these manual-ish tasks that, college students are eager to do. They're eager to gain that knowledge and gain that experience. It may not be the most glamorous thing, but they get exposed, and then over time, after a year or so, they'll be able to start realizing, okay, I can pull this report for you. Here, I've shown you how to do it in Trailhead. Let me, do this in a controlled environment with actual customers.
Have you seen that when you go and speak to these students, they're already aware of Salesforce as a career opportunity, or are you having to kind of plant that seed for them?
Absolutely, we have to plant the seed. It's unfortunate, and to your point of sort of, it's not like a totally easy entry into the ecosystem, right? People are loath to hire people who have no experience. It's very often that they won't take that leap and hire someone who just doesn't have that practical hands-on knowledge. In our case, it is a very viable career path. If you have the ability to go through, learn, get your certifications, interact with Trailhead, gain that experience, do the super badges. We believe that it's one of the fastest growing and honestly most financially advantageous routes for students coming out of school. The problem is that even though Salesforce is as ubiquitous as Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, it is not taught in the same way because the application is different, right? Despite Salesforce now being used in educational settings, people aren't realizing it, right? That every time they call, a help hotline on the phone, they may, be interacting with someone using Salesforce, but it's not visible to them. So they don't even know about it. All they know is that, hey, there's this, tower at every major city that's associated with Salesforce. That's it. As soon as they get into their role as an entry-level SDR or a BDR or, somebody who's brand new, they realize, wow, this thing is, everywhere. Every company is using it. Every job description asks if you have Salesforce experience. Gosh, I should have been spending time learning this in school. And so we try to work with Salesforce student groups. We try to get that message out there, but ultimately there's very smart, very talented people who are going down the path of, finance or medicine or technology or engineering, but they just don't know about Salesforce. They don't know that it's a possibility. And as soon as they hear about it, they hear about the starting salaries, they hear about the opportunities and what it actually is. They're fascinated and they jump right in. It's just getting them to that point. It's that education curve that we have to work
through.
So
have you, and I don't know how long you've been doing this in terms of using other students, but have you seen people that have then finished their education and are you seeing they're instantly wanting to come and join your business if it's gone through a whole term of people kind of getting to that point? Or are you even seeing people that are saying, well, actually, I don't want to carry on studying because Salesforce is everything I want to do right now anyway?
So we do see sort of a combination of the two, right? So I mean, I myself experienced, the pull of like, well, if I could go and work for Deloitte, PwC, Accenture of the world, you know, I've got more practical experience than half the people in their entry level class who are coming from university. Why don't I just drop out and do that? Obviously, we encourage people, hey, that piece of paper, at least for the foreseeable future of a university degree is well worth the time and effort if you can get through it. So we certainly encourage people to stick around, although we do see some exits if school just isn't worth it, or particularly if they're at an institution that may not be considered by society's view as the most prestigious. Then they say, okay, well, I'm learning much more experience here. I can go and get a job and work for a leading investment firm doing Salesforce, why would I even bother with university? On the flip side of that, we do see a combination of two factors encourage people to stay with our firm. One is that we pay our starting, I know because I went through the recruiting what the rates are at other firms, and I try to add on 15 or 20% just because it's worth it to retain that talent. And on the flip side, we're very much mobile, right? A 21-year-old would never normally be able to lead a team of consultants, but that's not out of hand here if they have the right experience, if they have the right temperament, if they've been in front of clients for 2 or 3 years at that point already. It very much, the aged being not a number side to this means that we're able to have much greater mobility on a promotion schedule, for example, responsibility schedule, in terms of, compared to another firm who might have a more rigid promotion schedule.
This is probably something you don't want to hear, because I hope it doesn't happen, but in a way I'm interested, because if someone then leaves your business, it will be interesting to see how much they've jumped ahead of their peers from other organizations because of the learning curve that you're able to give them. So like if they're going into one of these bigger corporates and they've had this exposure with you for a year or two, does that then position them as someone that's much more senior than their peers? It would be interesting to know. Obviously you don't want to find that out, right? But
I would agree with you. I don't really want to find that out, and I hope that I don't have to in some respects, but I'm also not afraid of it. And the reason I'm not afraid of it is that the vast majority of these larger firms aren't malleable in that status, right? When I graduated, I would probably have been at a senior consultant level, if we really take the experience and we wrap it up. But there was no talking to any of the major firms about taking on a brand new university student as in that capacity. So I don't actually know if it will translate on paper. They'll actually have to have heard of the firm. They'll have to have recognized that we stole business or something, that we've done a good job, change something in the industry, before they recognize that, wow, okay, this experience is twice as valuable or 3 times as valuable, on a year by year basis. So I think we still have quite a ways to go before we have sort of industry recognition of how, valuable the experience is. By which time, hopefully, we're big enough where we don't have to worry about losing people.
So what else makes you different as a business? Because from my understanding, obviously, you mentioned initially price was a big driver, but I think that's kind of continued as well, right? So am I correct in saying you have a flat fee, per whether you pay X, and that enables you access to all different levels within the business of the customer?
Yeah, so we we've really tried to build the business off of the concerns that we've heard from our customers. And because we were growing and acquiring customers at a rate of speed that was pretty high, we were able to be flexible and malleable as we were forming it. And so a number of key complaints and concerns have sort of influenced the way we do business now. One is the fact that customers didn't like the fact that stringent, strict statements of work limited the actual functionality of the solution they were given. So the idea of a consultant charging an extra hour of work to put in a checkbox field or something because it wasn't delineated on the statement of work unfortunately seems to be a much more common occurrence than I would hope in an industry like this. And so we said, we definitely don't want to be, building the firm like that. On the other side, customers also complained about the fact that, they would spend quite a sum of, $50,000, $60,000 to put in a system. It would all seem to work okay. They would sign off on the solution. The client would go and start using it. Consultant would fly away, and 2 months later, the solution would break in some way, or they'd uncover a flaw that they didn't know existed. And if they try to re-engage that consultant, either the consultant isn't interested because they have the business to go off and do, themselves elsewhere, or they want to charge, an additional sum of money and keep working to solve that problem. So when we reconcile those two, the biggest solution that we had was, okay, let's keep it simple. We charge $150 US flat rate, and you get access to a certain number of hours with the team. And the team consists of, couple of juniors, a couple of seniors, and a scrum master and, an architect to kind of lead the team. And that gives you, on a retainer model, so 5 or 10 hours a week, access to that team across the entire team in order to solve whatever issues might be coming up. We've found that our customers really like that because they know that, hey, first of all, you're not shelling out a ton of money up front for a team that you're not familiar with and you don't know the quality of work to expect. Second, the industry rate is usually pretty high, much higher than that. So they like that they're still getting a great deal. And third, they know that we're really incentivized to build quality solutions for them over the longer term and work alongside them to build up their tech stack in a sustainable way. Because if we're not making that high profit margin on those short-term engagements, we're really, working towards keeping that client happy, being attentive to their needs, et cetera, et cetera. And we've seen great success with that. It's sort of we kind of coin it as a consultants as a service model because it really is more like having a true partner or a team member on call.
I completely see the value of that. And I think that will be something that happens more regularly in the ecosystem. I think you guys are doing it now, but I think more people will follow. But I guess for a consulting partner, if someone's looking to start up a business, it's also I guess gathering pace under that model can although I see the value in the model and I think people will go down that route, it's a lot easier for someone that's starting a business to go, actually, to get the revenue through, it's better for me just to do big lump sum projects and have a lump sum of cash to scale the business. So what gave you the confidence to go with this model and know that over time it will build and you'll have more customers and I guess a predictability of long-term revenue, right?
Well, I think that the predictability element happens in that we actually ask our customers to partner with us. So we say, hey, we'll do 3 months on a trial basis. And then after that point in time, we ask you to commit for a 9-month period to work with us. So as long as they're happy with the level of service, and we've had a 95% conversion rate of people who start with us who go on to that longer period of time, as long as they're happy with it, everyone's secure that both the support is going to be there and that the revenue will be following, right? So in my mind, it's actually a much more secure way to grow and to scale because, as a consultant, I personally don't feel comfortable doing more than 20 hours per project a week because I feel like there's too much that can go wrong. Misalignment on customer vision with the progress that is happening, and by the time you do 20 or 30 hours worth of work, that's $5,000-6,000 that was spent potentially doing something that the customer wasn't happy with in the future. And by restricting that down and having a much more diversified model, not only as a business owner are you less dependent on any one client as a revenue stream, but you're more secure in the fact that you have a diverse set of clients that you get to work with, a diverse set of networks, and ultimately a lower commitment to each of them, allowing you to be more flexible and malleable as needs arise in various different places.
So do you see that these companies you're working with under this model, they tend not to need an internal person at all that knows Salesforce, and you're just an extension of their team?
So we do certainly see that as being, how we're treated in the industry. So in financial services, for example, there could be a team of 10 people managing $10 billion in assets or something like that. It's very simple I would say simple, but from a human capital perspective, that industry is less intensive as much as it is based on, intellectual capital. With that being said, there are conscious needs that people have, in order to be able to report on revenue, in order to be able to determine the success of a particular quarter or of the assets under their management. And we're able to be that for them in a much more cost-effective way than it would be to hire someone to fill those needs, full time, right? If you're hiring us for 10 hours a week, it's going to be a more effective way of accomplishing those needs. The same is applied to startups, right? Probably all the way through Series B or Series C, revenue ops is not something that companies always commit the necessary resources to in order to hire those full-time people. And usually when they do, they're well overworked, right? And they're trying to accomplish all of the needs. We get to serve as sort of that Band-Aid that comes in and say, hey, we have this specialized set of knowledge, and this is something where you can just email us, Seamus, I need a report on X, Y, and Z. We're able to take a look at it 24 hours later, get it back to you, and it's going to be done right and done well, rather than trying to spend, half a day trying to figure it out yourself, going through Trailhead.
I had a conversation with a guy called Bradley Rice from the US. He's based out of Florida. I'm not sure if you've seen him online, but he's big on freelancing, and he calls himself an independent consultant, right? So he doesn't have a business per se of team members, but he does like 20-hour blocks, or 10 hours here for a customer, 10 hours there, and he was saying that if the customer doesn't use those 10 hours, it's kind of like, for them, as long as they're getting value and they're giving enough work, and like they don't come back and say, well, I only used 8. It's kind of, because for them it's more work to then get someone else upskilled on the system, and as long, it's just an agreement, right, that some weeks will be more, some weeks will be less, but it kind of averages itself out. Is that how you see it when it is like a bigger business, right? You've got a number of these agreements running, a number of team members working on things. Like, how to the point does the time sheeting need to be to keep everyone happy?
So it's certainly one of those things that as we scale, we're going to have to deal with more. I always tell, as part of kind of my introductory conversation with people, my family's background is in Ireland, basically, farming and pouring concrete for a living, right? So in those small scale communities, it's just a little bit, business is done a little bit differently, where you give a little, you take a little. It's more of a communal element, and I seem to have inherited that a little bit in the business, to the point of, if someone if we're on a 10-hour agreement with someone and it takes us 20 to do the work for that particular week, they're still going to get charged 10, because first of all, the product, we take such pride in what we do, for better or for worse, that it needs to be the best version of what we're delivering possible. To your point of, is that scalable? Potentially not. Eventually we're going to need to have a lot better tracking in place of being able to say, all right, there's going to be a cutoff once people move beyond their 5%, over their allotment. We're going to need to start charging for them, something like that. But until we have to do that, I'm certainly, happy to go that mile and above to kind of help, from a customer service perspective. That's why we're trusted partners rather than just a vendor. I feel like that helps solidify that. To your point about, expiring hours if they don't use it, that sort of relationship. I sort of view, there's that old the Peanuts cartoon with Linus and his safe, his blanket, his comfort blanket, right? We are the comfort blanket. We're there that when, the system breaks, when something is urgent. I got a call today, 3 hours ago, that a brand new client needs something by the end of the day tomorrow. I cleared my schedule with the exception of this podcast, and said, okay, let's jump on the Zoom, let's get it done. And we're going to successfully deliver that project in time. And that's just part of who we are as,
Sure.
a nimble, agile agency, is that we do have an unfortunate track record of being, placed with very short timelines and getting the resources in place and delivering them. And people love that. And so they realize that that's such a huge value, as opposed to having a freelancer that you have to go out and search and interview for, that most of the time they're more than willing to say, okay, even if we're only using 70% of the time, that 30% is more than enough to keep, Seamus and his team engaged with us.
Sure. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. It's like, you don't need it until you don't have it, right? And then that's when the problem comes in. So yeah, okay. So what's the future looking like in your eyes? I did see you're hiring at the moment. I think it's a lead role for the business, someone a management capacity.
Yeah, so we're growing at a pretty decent clip. So we predict that over the next 6 to 9 months, we'll be hiring about at a rate of 1 consultant per month, which is pretty rapid expansion. And for all the reasons we've described, I think that trend will continue. I think that as long as we can keep the quality up and so on. So our biggest concern right now is scaling and maintaining that quality. And so right now, I serve in a role where I'm basically project managing most of everything, right? I oversee and delineate service kind of that traffic cop to route the tasks to the appropriate resources. And I need another person who can do that. And ideally, I recognize that there is virtue to having someone with the expertise of working in one of these other firms, right? Who's been there, done that. Combine the, quote unquote, disruptive way that we're doing it with the well-established industry standards, and hopefully create this hybrid super machine. And so that's sort of what we're hiring for now, is someone who, eventually, as we continue to grow, I would like to see kind of scale into kind of a consulting role, and allow me to sort of oversee the
nice, exciting times.
Business.
So if anyone that is listening to this, it could even be someone that potentially is looking to do something similar, maybe in a different country, not with financial services in the Bay Area, but yeah. So anyone that kind of wants to pick your brains, where's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, by all means, I get people reaching out to me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the easiest way. Seamus Ruiz-Earle is a pretty unique name. You'll be able to find it without too much trouble. And we always love to talk with people. And I'm a big fan of kind of the networking element, because as we expand, good talent, high quality talent, it doesn't matter really where you're located. We're willing to entertain that conversation.
Sure, nice. Well, look, thank you so much. It's been really great to hear more about the story about yourself and the business. And I'm sure, that continued success will come. So thank you very much.
Thanks again for having me.